questions for each of you. I'll just recap a few issues which we have discussed over the past 1 week. Right? In this analysis of the global power matrix, I have to reiterate कि इंडिया का जो जीडीपी है वो 2025 में जापान का पार करने का अंदेशा है और 2030 तक हम 6-7-8 ट्रिलियन डॉलर के जीडीपी होंगे। जब हम उस स्तर तक पहुंच जाएंगे, वी आर अ हेवीवेट प्लेयर इन द वर्ल्ड, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं होना चाहिए। राइट? ये सिर्फ जापान काउंसिल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक रिसर्च का मानना नहीं है, ये ड्यूश बैंक का भी व्यू यही है और मॉर्गन स्टैनली का भी व्यू यही है और ये रिपोर्ट बहुत जगह से आ चुका है। राइट? दूसरी बात यह है कि पिछले 1-2 साल से हम देख रहे हैं कि भारत जो है वो बहुत ग्लोबल अफेयर्स में सेंट्रलिटी पा चुका है। जब पहले माना जाता था कि इंडिया इज अ स्विंग स्टेट का मतलब जिस तरीके से जिस तरह भारत झुकेगा वो पलटा भारी हो जाएगा, पर आजकल सब बोल रहे हैं कि इंडिया इज अ बैलेंसिंग पावर, इट्स अ बैलेंसिंग पावर इन ग्रेट पावर इक्वेशंस। और मेरा मानना ये है और हम सब का मानना यही है कि जैसे जैसे हमारा अर्थव्यवस्था बढ़ता जाएगा और हमारा कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल पावर बढ़ता जाएगा, वी विल बिकम सम काइंड ऑफ अ कंट्रोलिंग पावर, कम से कम इंडियन ओशन रीजन में। राइट? और ये बात जो है, जो ये पूरा सीरीज का जो प्रोत्साहन मिला है वो मेरे को ये कार्टून से मिला है, जो एक इट्स अ कार्टून बाय एन अमेरिकन अबाउट 1-2 years बैक। सो देयर इज सम लॉजिक इन व्हाट ही हैज डन और इसीलिए ये हम ये डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। एंड दिस इज आल्सो बीइंग बोर्न आउट बाय द फैक्ट ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स विजिट टू वॉशिंगटन। राइट? जैसे हमने बताया, ये मैट्रिक्स अभी हम पढ़ते आ रहे हैं, एनालाइज करते आ रहे हैं। इसमें बड़ा क्लियर है यूएसए और इंडिया के बीच में आकर्षण है और चाइना और रशिया के बीच में आकर्षण है। बाकी इंटर रिलेशनशिप में कुछ तनाव है, कुछ आकर्षण है और ओवरऑल ये है, ये तो सबको पता है। बट हमारा जो पूरा डिस्कशन पिछले 1 हफ्ते से, उसमें उसका नतीजा क्या निकला? उसका नतीजा ये निकला है कि यूएसए जो है वो अभी भी इट्स द मोस्ट डोमिनेटिंग पावर। लोग बोलते हैं डिक्लाइन हो रहा है, पर उस डिक्लाइन का कोई बड़ा असर अभी तक नहीं पड़ा। राइट? जहां तक चाइना का सवाल है, चाइना का ये है, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं कि इट इज एन इकोनॉमिक सुपर पावर एंड इट इज एन एस्पायरिंग ग्लोबल पावर, बट इट इज एन डिक्लाइन। ये डिक्लाइन इसीलिए है कि उसका आबादी घट रहा है और डेमोग्राफिक डिक्लाइन हो रहा है। लोग बोलते हैं कि ये बड़ी बात नहीं है, पर आप जरा सोचिए, कोई भी देश अपना इट इज ऑल डिपेंडेंट ऑन इट्स पॉपुलेशन। अगर पॉपुलेशन ही नहीं है तो वो देश का पावर कहाँ से आएगा? अपने लोगों से ही पावर आएगा। जहां तक रशिया का सवाल है, रशिया ये जो यूक्रेन के वॉर में फंसा हुआ है और इसकी वजह से इसका अर्थव्यवस्था और बाकी डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस भी सफर होंगे। अगर वो उसमें थोड़ा सफर होंगे तो इट विल इमर्ज एज अ वीकेंड पावर। ये एक वीकेंड पावर ही रहेगा कुछ दिन तक, कुछ हद से तक। मेरे ख्याल में एक नेक्स्ट 5 to 10 years इट विल रिमेन अ पावर बट अ वीकेंड पावर। जहां तक भारत का सवाल है, वी आर अ ग्रोइंग पावर एंड वी आर एमर्जिंग फ्रॉम रेटिसेंस। मैं रेटिसेंस इसीलिए इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूँ शब्द, क्योंकि ये माना गया है कि इंडिया इज अ रेटिसेंट पावर ग्लोबली, not prepared to commit itself to a stated position from a long time, and it appears कि हम कुछ commitment we are prepared to undertake a commitment, right? And things are changing in this matrix. Now, keeping all this in view, India's equations with Russia or USA or its tension-filled relations with China are not going to change in a hurry as India is changing. In some cases, ये हो सकता है it might go to the next level, right? But this balance of power game which goes on put some questions in front of us, जो मैंने आपकी बातों से ही निकाला है, right? तो सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन ये है कि as a consequence of our growing Indo-US strategic partnership, क्या हम ये देख रहे हैं कि यूएस इंडिया वर्सेस रशिया चाइना का एक डैड निकल रहा है? डैड का मतलब दो ग्रुपिंग्स निकल रहे हैं। अगर आर वी बीइंग ड्रिवन इनटू दिस डैड, क्या हमें मजबूरन ये अपनाना पड़ रहा है? अगर ये हो गया तो व्हाट आर द implications फॉर इंडिया, and how do we handle this situation so that we don't get into such a situation where we have to choose between our friends and our partners, and we don't end up in a situation where we have permanent adversaries, right? I'll request General Ahuja, आप जरा इसको please put throw some light on it.
Thank you, General Shankar. Thank you for getting me into this show in the company of my two very eminent panelists. Privileged to be here. अभी आपका जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आपने पूछा है कि हम अपनी यूएस के साथ स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के कारण आर वी सीइंग द इमर्जेंस ऑफ अ डायड, यानी आपने दिखाया एक तरफ यूएस प्लस इंडिया और दूसरी तरफ वर्सेस आपने दिखाया रशिया प्लस चाइना, और इसकी क्या इंप्लीकेशंस होंगी। वेल, टू योर क्वेश्चंस, माय आंसर is it emergence of a dyad? My answer is yes and no. Well, I say yes. If you wish to call it a dyad, then it has huge overlaps and extensions on both sides. There are many more players on the American side, the NATO, the entire Western countries, and there are some other nations on the Russia and the China side. Then, considering this dyad, like I said, US plus India versus Russia plus China, this would entail considering only 4 players, which, like I said, is not really the case. And also, it gives us a feeling that we have a relationship of confrontation, competition, contestation with both, with Russia as well as with China, which is not really the case. Our competition, conflict, confrontation, cooperation, whatever it is, in that sense is towards Russia, is towards China. But as far as Russia is concerned, it remains a traditional friend and it remains a reliable partner, which, one would not like to bring it into any of those different poles in a dyad. So, इसलिए मैं आपने जो ओरिजिनल फॉर्मुलेशन किया है हमारे इस डायलॉग का, ग्लोबल पावर मैट्रिक्स, मैं उसको ज्यादा एप्रोप्रिएट समझता हूं rather than considering it as a dyad, क्योंकि इन चारों देशों के अंदर, चारों पावर्स के अंदर आपस के इंट्रिकेट रिलेशंस हैं, एक वेब ऑफ रिलेशनशिप है जिसको हम पहले के डायलॉग्स के अंदर भी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं और आज आपने अभी भी अपने शुरू के चार्ट के अंदर हमें यही समझाया है। Now, let's see, there are 3 major global powers: US, China, Russia. Russia and China, they have some vital national interests competing with the US. And as Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff of US, General Mark Milley, had said earlier during the year, that the conflict between the US and these 2 countries is neither inevitable nor imminent. So they are a par in their right earnest, both of them. Today, US and today Russia and China, now they have come close to each other. Russia, despite being a major power, today is in a disadvantageous position, is in a kind of a secondary position to China because of its need to export its energy, to find a trade alternate destination for trade, for getting alternate trade, and for getting technology, and for getting tremendous amount of support. But we must remember that both these countries know each other's strengths, know each other's vulnerabilities. They have 300 odd agreements, and Russia will remain a power, although temporarily in a secondary position to China. Now, next, as far as the direction that the current global situation is taking, the war in Ukraine. Now, for Russia, I'm not in a position to predict that what will be the final outcome of this war. How will it settle? How will it resolve itself? I mean, that's a separate discussion by itself. But as far as Russia is concerned, for them, it's an existential war. It's an existential threat. This brings into their mind the memories of 1917 during World War I, when during the Tsar's regime, they started going down at that time because Russia was weak, because Russia suffered. It brings them back the memories of 1941 when the Germans walked into Russia. So it's a matter of their sovereignty. Now, what I'm trying to come to is that Russia is fighting an existential war. Whatever happens, it will emerge weak, but it will not be prudent for us to write off Russia. We must consider it as a power which is here to stay. The level of power may change. The content of the relationship may change. But then this relationship should not be written off that Russia is gone as a power. The next aspect I wish to highlight is that we have imperatives of our equipment. 60 to 65% of equipment, its sustenance, our strategic partnership in many critical fields. We are all aware of them. We've discussed them. And of course, our now reliance on energy, and then the traditional partnership. So you don't leave your traditional partners, but yes, your strategic realities compel you to fine-tune the balance of relationship, the weight of relationship. Now, having spoken of Russia and of the three powers, today the competition that is taking place is between US and China. And this competition is all around us. It is along the LAC, it is in Nepal, it's in Bangladesh, it's in Myanmar, it's all around us in the Indian Ocean. And we have been put at the geographic front line of the Indo-Pacific. And in this situation, inaction is not an option for us. Passive non-alignment is not an option for us. We have to play a role, and to play that role, we have to get a space in this region. And to get that space, we have spoken right from our first dialogue on this under this title. We have said India is a balancing power. To be a viable balancing power, we have to look at economy, we have to look at politics, we have to look at diplomacy, but then we have to look at the cutting edge of the comprehensive national power, because at the end of the day, the cutting edge is actually the cutting edge. Now, our relationship comes in with America and with Russia. Now, when we look at building our power, we have to look at building our own capabilities at one side and bridging the operational gaps that exist today on the other side. Because what we are doing in capability development is we are doing it on two tracks. Track one is to have your operational preparedness to fight today and now the real threats that exist on our borders every day. The second aspect of this is to build our capabilities for the future. Now, if we look at the very current things that we are talking of, the deal that is likely to be signed for the Predators, for MQ-9s that we are likely to get, is building your capability for here and now. Getting G engine manufacturing, co-development, co-production, technology cooperation, defense industrial cooperation is building our capability for tomorrow and day after. But both are important. Now, today for our capability, according to statistics given by or quoted from IISS, we have 90% of armored vehicles, 69% of combat aircraft, 44% of submarines and ships, 65% of our imported missiles, which are of Russian origin. And of course, we have our BrahMos, we have our other strategic assets with Navy and within many other fields. But then we have other domains. We have the domain of ISR. We have the domain of maritime domain awareness, of electronic warfare, for strategic and medium lift air capability, in cyber, space, in critical and emerging technologies. There, the greater prowess is of the American side. So what we have to do is that we have to make it clear to our friends that it's not a zero-sum relationship. Both are important. Both have their own place, but we have to know our interests, our requirements, without making them clash with each other. With China, our boundary question is not settled. Our LAC, our LC on the west, they are here to stay. CBMs have lost their relevance, but they still have relevance because we still diffuse a number of things. So we will have to manage our borders and we will have to learn to work in this global matrix that you have so nicely highlighted. And when we build our capability, when we build our partnership, there will be certain conditionalities. There will be certain demands imposed on us. We have to weigh them. We have to weigh them very carefully. That what is undermining our national interests, we will not accept it. But what is functional and procedural, well, we'll have to accept some of them. So let's leave it to the wisdom of our people who are negotiating it. And finally, while working with Russia, while working with the US, we have to nurture this relationship. And in the conflicting environment that exists today, nurturing has become a little more difficult. And with China, we have to manage this relationship, manage with power, manage with strength, manage with capability. There is no choice. There is no utopian solution for it.
Right, sir.
So
I think that's very nicely put. Sir, Brigadier Sahgal, sir, your views on it. Quick, short views so that then we can get on to the next questions.
I generally agree with what General Ahuja has said, but I'd like to make two, 3 points. The fundamental issue is, like I said yesterday in our discussion, that Russia and United States are two of our significant partnerships. Each allow us a certain degree of strategic space and a strategic capabilities which we cannot overlook. And for India, we do not have to make a choice. But like I also said, that we had a tendency of accepting or taking the Russian relationship as an entitlement issue. That's not going to happen. It's going to become more transactional, and it will be a more transactional, and that's something which we have to live with. My understanding is that we are not cutting off, like today's editorial in Economic Times tends to say that we are making strategic choices. I would not agree with that, and I've said so in my remarks. But with the United States, again, we have to understand that we have intrinsic leverages with the United States. There's a perception in the media's mindset that we are getting into this relationship because we want anything. No,
No. Yes, we
we
will
are
go
getting
together
into
on
this
that.
relationship because it is of strategic convergences for both of us. And that's important issue that we have to understand. Similarly, the strategic convergences with Russia are equally this thing. We discussed the fact yesterday that the Russians are basically a European player. They want to be a European power. They are not very comfortable with the Chinese. They understand the Chinese game plan. So I think taking that cognizance into view, I think we have to do a good balancing act between both the powers, and we have to, and like I said, 10 years from now is the period when all these things will start being put in place. And it's important for us because we always keep extending our 10-year periods because of our own deficiencies. Unfortunately, beyond 2030, the balance of power globally is going to be different, and India will have to take a call. And India will have to take a call in developing its capacities and capabilities to deal with the situations that it will face, as highlighted by General Ahuja.
Right,
Thank you.
sir. You've given a complimentary thing to what General Ahuja has said. And I do agree with both of you. But let's hear General Bhatia before we cap it and go to the next question.
Thank you, General Shankar. I think I have fully endorsed and agree to what General Ahuja and General Brigadier Sahgal have said. Brigadier Sahgal said a very nice this thing. We need to balance it. I think India has a balancing power. को हमको balance करना पड़ेगा our relationship. हमको balance करना पड़ेगा the balance of power. हमको balance करना the balance of interest. So there's a lot of balancing which is required. The balance of power की game में balance of interest हमारे interest भी है. We have to balance our relationship with US. We have to balance our relationship with Russia. Both are very important to us. And we also balance our relationship with China also. We cannot say कि China के साथ हम हमेशा strategic competition में रहेंगे, confrontation में रहेंगे, conflict में रहेंगे. There has to be strategic cooperation and coordination also. We are neighbors after all. हमें ये नहीं भूलना चाहिए. A little bit of caution is required. अगर आप यूएस के जो अभी पेपर्स आ रहे हैं now they are saying कि India, Prime Minister Modi is there, so I'll read out what they have said. कहते हैं network security architecture में in the Indo-Pacific which has a capability to stand up to China. That is what they want India to do, right? To stand up to China. No, I should not be a proxy to the US game with China. There's strategic competition between the US and China. अभी हमको strategically smart होना पड़ेगा to balance it out to make sure that our interests. We are a large nation. We are a growing power. There's no doubt about it. We are there right now. In the competitive nation, we have to have a rightful place. लेकिन उसको हमें बैलेंस करना पड़ेगा और ये बैलेंस बहुत जरूरी है और मेरे ख्याल से हम ये कर भी रहे हैं। कोई एक और चीज मैं बताना चाहूंगा। आई विल रीड आउट फ्रॉम अमेरिकन पेपर। दिस इज स्टीव चैन है, प्रोफेसर इन द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कोलोराडो। उन्होंने रिसेंटली बुक पब्लिश करी है, चाइना यूएस के पावर ट्रांजिशन थ्योरी राइटर है वो। और वो लिखते हैं चाइना recent growth has called attention to the power transition theory, which contends that the danger of a major war is the greatest when a rising dissatisfied challenger threatens to overtake a declining satisfied hegemon. Right? So, इसमें I will not say that the US is declining power, but it is not a growing power. And China, irrespective of what generally this thing is, but we have to give the best or the worst option to China, that China will continue to grow, maybe at a lesser pace. I don't see actually China declining right now, because Xi Jinping is in a man in a hurry, and that is, I think, China's major problem right now. And Xi Jinping जो है माओ की फिलॉसफी फॉलो करते हैं। माओ की फिलॉसफी बड़ी अच्छी थी, फाइट टॉक टॉक। तो एक जगह तो फाइट कर रहे हैं, दूसरी जगह टॉक टॉक कर रहे हैं। Xi Jinping is also, he's a great follower of Mao's philosophies. If you want to understand Xi Jinping, आप माओ को पढ़िए, काफी सारी चीजें माओ की फिलॉसफी देते हैं। तो फाइट टॉक टॉक। अभी जो परसों जो उनका सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट गए हैं, जो उनके वहां से आ रहा है, इंडिकेटर्स आ रहे हैं, अच्छे इंडिकेटर्स आ रहे हैं। अभी नवंबर में विजिट है शी जिनपिंग की यूएस में, देखने क्या होता है। तो आई थिंक इन द एंड आई विल गो विद both Gen Anil Ahuja and Sahgal, but as an Indian, I would like to balance my interests rather than get involved in the balance of power game.
I think आप सब लोगों ने जो बोला है वो इसमें दो राय नहीं है कि इंडिया हैज टू बी अ बैलेंसिंग पावर, और बैलेंसिंग के ऊपर ज्यादा ध्यान होना चाहिए। और यहाँ हमें नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए कि वी गेट इनटू अ डायड रिलेशनशिप, क्योंकि आजकल जो खास करके पिछले एक हफ्ते 10 दिन से, और मेरे ख्याल में अगले 10-15 दिन तक ये चलता रहेगा, कि यूएसए से जो आवाज निकल के आ रहे हैं वो ये चाहते हैं इंडिया इज फर्मली इन यूएस कैंप, और ये डायड बन जाए और हम रशिया और चाइना के अगेंस्ट काम करें यूएसए के साथ, राइट। और आपने जो, इसीलिए मैंने ये सवाल उठाया था, हमने सब ये बात किया था कि ये हो नहीं सकता, और इट इज नॉट इन इंडियाज इंटरेस्ट। हमारे इंटरेस्ट में नहीं है कि हम ऐसे एक कॉन्फ्रंटेशनल रिलेशनशिप तैयार करें बोथ विद रशिया एंड चाइना। हालांकि हमारे साथ चाइना के साथ टेंशंस हैं, बट इट शुड नॉट बिकम एडवर्सरियल कंप्लीटली विदाउट अ टर्न बैक, राइट।